Good morning, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of Tour de Kim O'Neill Coaching, where today I'm going to be talking all about podcast interview tips and insights. This is going to be really good stuff, especially for newbies or beginners to being a podcast guest, as well as anybody who's looking for just more insight. Maybe you want to grow your confidence and deepen your skills. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some of those basic tips and insights and something to really help you just develop that foundation of when you start to contact podcasters to be a guest on their show or start to research which shows do I want to be a guest on. You're going to feel a little more prepared, like you know what to anticipate and you're ready to do that. So I am excited to do this with you today. And if you're here with me live, go ahead and let me know in the comments. If you're on the replay, let me know on the replay. By the end of October 2019, you're going to know how I went from employment interview coaching all the way to helping people move through their own personal healing journeys and live to tell about it on podcasts as well. So that's also what we're doing here all this month in October 2019. And so last week I did talk about starting with employment interviewing and how that came about for me. And now we're going to be moving into podcast interviewing. And it's interesting because I've learned that there is overlap. There is overlap with some of the more things that have to do with how you communicate and how you present yourself. But it's not a direct crossover in terms of skills to have for your employment interviews and your podcast interviews. And before I get into that though, I want to give you more of that background of how did this even come about for me? Because I was never planning on getting into podcasting. That was never really on my radar. And so here's what happened. And I apologize if you're hearing some dings. I know I am. I'm going to go ahead and close something. Tip. Here's a tip right here. You got a bonus tip right there. So it all started in 2015. I was 2 years into my employment interview coaching journey. And I said at the beginning of 2015 to my coach that, by the end of this year, I would like to do at least one interview. Okay, now that was it. Now that's very vague, nondescript, right? And what I meant by that is I want to be a guest on at least one interview, someone else's podcast. I wanted to be the guest on at least one show by the end of the year. That to me at that time was thinking big, right? Putting myself out there as a new coach, being interviewed by someone about it. Lo and behold, about a month later, an opportunity presented itself to me for me to host my own show. Something that I did not see coming, I didn't anticipate, and yet I knew in that moment it was a full body yes for me. That was an opportunity that was absolutely up my alley and was something that was absolutely meant for me. So I said yes to it, and I was super excited, but I was also super nervous. And this was where that was just like the beginning to me realizing that there's more to learn. And what do I mean by that? Well, when I say it was a full body yes, to say yes to podcasting, that's because I consider myself to have a performance background. So I'm sharing all this for a reason in case you can relate here. So I did theater and choir and show choir. I was a communications major in college, which practically every assignment then is another speech in front of your class or, an audience of some type. I did this all the way from literally elementary school through high school, some in college, and then even into my adult life. Did some voiceover work and then eventually was in a band. So I'm thinking, hosting a podcast. Awesome. This sounds fun. I can do this. I got this. This is a great way for me to help share what I have to share in regards to coaching and to really supporting people and gaining more confidence in various ways. And it was at this time when I started then hosting my own show that all this other stuff came up that I never saw coming. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, you can have all this experience in one area of your life of knowing how to do something, right? Knowing how to put yourself out there, how to connect with other people, how to share a message. And yet there'd be a whole nother level that you hadn't experienced yet. So for me, in my case, it was when you are performing in any capacity, theater, music, singing, all those types of things, you typically have some sort of script that you have memorized. And so even if you've gotten comfortable with that, you can flow with it more, but it was someone else's words, someone else's script to begin with. And when you start to move into something like podcasting, it's no longer about having script. You might have some notes, but it's not even someone else's notes. They're your notes. It now becomes about you. And one area that, podcasting differs from job interviews is, job interviews are a very, I want to say localized. That's not quite the right term, but a very, enclosed situation in a room with one other person, maybe more than one person. And that's about it. Whereas a podcast is going to have a life of its own that you will not be able to control after it's recorded and out in the world. Even if you're the one who is doing all the producing and recording and all of that stuff and then putting it out there, once you put it out there, it's out there. Even if you decide to take it down at some point, you can't take back what someone has already seen or heard. And so this can create this whole new level of getting comfortable with yourself, with your message, with your expertise, your wisdom, what it is that you want to share and present to the world that you may or may not have already worked through. So here I am today to now share with you podcast interviewing tips and insights to really support you in, again, creating that foundation level of having a little bit more understanding of what you're getting into as you develop more confidence and put yourself out there. And I'm just going to say right now, kudos to you if you are putting yourself out there, assuming that actually supports you in some way, right? And so let me take a quick look and just see if we have anybody with us. Feel free to say hello if you're with me live. I see someone here. And so that's just a little bit of my background of how I even moved into podcasting, what I was never expecting to. And I'm so grateful for their journey though, because, not only did it have the ability to support me in sharing my message, can help support you in sharing your message, but it had this whole other layer of personal development and growth that I never anticipated, but makes total sense because anytime you're learning something new, trying something new, there's going to be an element of that for you. So, okay, I'm taking a quick glance at my notes, make sure that we're on track and I share everything with you that I want to share today. Yeah, and so actually one added thing is that because it had this whole other layer of really working through the anxieties, the fears, just all the added thoughts that were coming through as I was on my podcasting journey, it really lent itself to the personal coaching that I was also moving further into. And so I'm not going to get into that right now because that'll actually be next week if you're joining me live here on these videos. But it's interesting how it all just blends and flows right into the next. One thing into the next, right? So at this point, from now hosting a show for over 4 years, as well as being a guest on other people's shows, I am now able to come to you with experience from both sides of that table of knowing what helps make a really good prepared podcast guest from the host perspective, as well as from being a guest myself, and combining that with the employment interview coaching. Voila, it's a wonderful combination. So my first tip and insight for you is my recipe of what makes a great guest, great podcast guest, is someone who is present. So present in the moment with the show, with the host, with what they're doing. Someone who already has a level of confidence about themselves, about what they have to speak about. Someone who knows what they're speaking about. I know that might sound obvious and redundant, but you might also find yourself in a space where you're still kind of figuring out what it is that you share, even though you know that you have a ton to share. I totally get this. Again, this has been a learning journey for me as well. Someone who is able to bring their energy to the show. What do I mean by that? I do not mean creating some sort of false sense of enthusiasm. When you are present and when you are able to feel confident in who you are and what you have to share, it's going to be a lot easier for you to also be connected to your energy that will naturally flow through. So that's more of an abstract thing, of course, but bringing energy to a show really helps. It is a two-way conversation, not a one-sided thing. And last but not least, the ability to flow within the conversation, to flow, with whatever comes your way. Even the host, they may say, okay, this is what's going to happen on the show. And then maybe something else happens instead, right? So you can't always plan for those things. Actually, I take that back. The way that you plan for it is by preparing, is by being ready. And also, this leads into the personal stuff. The more work you do on releasing anxieties and fears and attachments to things, start looking a certain way, it's going to be easier for you to be able to flow within that conversation. So that is my recipe, my very first top tip and insight on what can really support you in being just your best self in a podcast interview. Moving on to number 2, taking a quick look here at the comments. Moving on to tip number 2 is actually before you get that interview. It's actually getting the interview itself, right? So I know some people are like, well, how? How do I get to be a guest on a podcast? How do I do that? That, maybe that seems like a concept that sort of evades you. You know that you want to. You know what podcasts are. Some people don't, so I say it that way. You know what podcasts are, and you're interested in being on them, but the rest is kind of like, there's a disconnect. There are so many podcasts and podcasters out there. Just start with a Google search, okay? If you're really not sure where to look, start with a Google search. Beyond that, let's say you do have some connections. Connect with the people that you know that are podcasters, and just start to get familiar with what they share, with, how are they doing it, right? So there are so many podcasts and podcasters out there today. There are those that are absolutely extremely well known as top podcasters, literally, as well as those who are super, super beginner. So there's a whole wide range of podcasters with varying levels of experience. So some of them may actually have I'm going to get back to that point in a moment. Some of them may actually have an application process to be on their show. So once you start to see, okay, what podcasters are out there, who you might be interested in, in being on their show, check to see, do they have instructions for how to be a guest on their show? I want to say a lot. I'll be honest, I don't have a fact to back that up, but I know quite a good number of people who do have some form of an application process to be on their show. And then there are others that do not. So first, just take a look, check their website out, check their Facebook page out, be monitoring their posts. Do they ever say, I'm looking for new guests, let me know if you'd be interested, or do you have any insights on this subject I'd like to do a show on? and be ready to raise your hand. Let them know that you would be interested. So first and foremost, check to see. They might already have information out there on how you can be a guest. It's not always as hard as you think. That other point that I want to make, I'm going to be honest, it sort of left me. So it might come back. But here's another thing. Let's say that they do not have it on their website. This next tip, some people might disagree with me on, but I'm going to share it anyway. So, and there are two ways that I look at this. So the first thing, so let's say you go, I want to be on that show, and I don't see any instructions for how to be a guest. Don't rule out a simple, direct approach. You can reach out to that podcaster, introduce yourself, share with them who you are, what it is you do, why you think what you have to share would be a really good fit for their podcast. Show them that you're actually, that you actually do listen to their podcast, that that there's a match. There's a match between you and them. You absolutely can do that. And this would be in the form of, sending a thoughtful email. Or if you don't have access to their email, maybe they don't list their email address, maybe send them a thoughtful Facebook message. On the other side, you can also build a relationship. And that is incredibly important. So whether you decide to take the direct approach or not, podcasting and podcasters and guests, a lot of it does become about a relationship. It's very important because even though podcasters, you may look at, wow, this podcaster, they've done so many shows with so many different guests. There's still so many other people out there that they haven't interviewed yet, that it took something for them to say, ooh, I want to interview this person, to be able to devote their time and effort into creating a show for that particular guest. So developing a relationship with that podcaster is very beneficial to you and to the strength of the show that you're going to end up creating with them somewhere down the line. And I know some people actually say, don't do the direct approach, just start with building a relationship with them. And what does that mean? It means, take time to, show them some social media love, listen to their show, comment on their show, provide feedback, share episodes of their show out. That stuff really makes a difference. Podcasting is a lot of work. It really is for podcasters. So that's one way you can start to just develop a connection and connect with them on social media or wherever you are seeing their show, with always being genuine about it. So this isn't being, fake about, oh, I love your show. Not really. I just want to be a guest. No. You want it to actually be someone's show you actually enjoy, and there's an alignment there, right? Okay. The other thing I want to say is, whether you take the direct approach or I'm going to just start off with building a relationship, make sure that you are being in that aligned, confident, genuine place. Because something I've noticed is that if you're not entirely, the communication that you have with the podcaster can come across somewhat awkward and maybe a little, it just may create an energy between you and the podcaster that you don't want to generate. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. So just be mindful of those things. Don't be afraid to reach out. Yes, there's value in developing that relationship. And if at some point you still never really see a connection, you can always, you don't have to come right out and ask, can I be on your show? You can come right out and ask, what's the process for being a guest on your show? I'd love to know more. That is totally fine to ask. So, and then always be sure to follow whatever directions that they give you about that. Okay, so wow, I went really long on that step. Let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is all about your bio. All about your bio. You want to have a bio already written, ready to go, and preferably well written. A well-written bio. So for those podcasters who do have some form of an application process, it's going to be pretty common that they ask you for, either they're going to ask you specifically for your bio, which is what I ask, or they're going to ask you, what's your expertise? What do you have to share with me? And that's often something that people will put into their bio. So if you have your bio ready to go, you can either use the whole thing or use portions of it and have something ready to go to fill out that application. If you aren't approaching a podcaster first, but you already have your bio created, maybe it's on your website, it's on your Facebook, business page somewhere, keep in mind that as people get to know who you are and what you're about, they may look to find out more about you. And they're going to look for your bio. They're going to look at your about page on your website. They're going to want to read more about you. And so that'll be one of the very first things they look for. If you have a bio, but it's not coherent. Maybe the pieces are all over the place and it's not very well written. That could also detract from how you are perceived. So that's why I emphasize well written. And lastly, there are going to be some podcasters that may not care about your bio whatsoever. Because something I didn't say when I spoke about employment interview coaching last week is that interviews, and this applies to podcast interviews as well, can be very subjective. No two interviewers, no two podcasters, no two people, right, are ever alike. And while there may be similarities, two different people doing the same thing can still have completely different preferences and viewpoints on this. But I'm sharing with you what I have learned works well, and it's going to help you be as prepared as possible, regardless of what shows up for you in terms of what the podcast that you want to be on are requiring or requesting from you. And so bio, incredibly important for you. Okay, moving on to number 4 is, and this is going to seem so obvious, but I've just learned it's important to say, having a photo ready. So I'm sure you've seen whenever a podcaster is announcing their next podcast episode, they're typically going to share some sort of photo, right? Some sort of graphic that, depicts their show and has a photo of the guest, right? And so something that I've learned is that some podcasters are not only going to ask for a photo, but they might even specifically ask for, I want a 3x5 horizontal photo, or they might give certain like pixel size or JPEG size, megabyte size. And there's different ways to, not JPEG size, right? Because it'd be megabyte size. So they might give certain parameters of what they want your photo to be, because it's going to fit within whatever parameters of what they generate and create. So first and foremost, just if you're brand new at this, start off with a photo. Have a decent, good photo that is not pixelated, is a high resolution photo, and it allows your face to be seen completely. It is some form of a headshot, or at least a half body shot. If it is a full body shot, at least you can be seen clearly. But it's not like, you went out fishing one day, someone took a picture of you and you're way off in the distance. That's not the type of photo you send in. I know for some people this is going to be so obvious, but for those that it's not, that's not what you want to put out there. Unless you are someone who's known for your fishing, and then something like that may actually apply. So yes, it is okay to provide photos that show you doing what you talk about, what your message is about. But a lot of times those may be additional photos that you could send in. So you definitely want to have at least one photo that shows your face close up. You're able to be seen clearly. The photo can be enlarged or reduced and still look good. And it can be something that you even take yourself. You don't have to necessarily go out and get a professional headshot done by someone. Those are fantastic as well. But you can also just start off with a decent photo that you take of of yourself and go with that. Okay, number five. I'm giving so much today, my goodness. Number 5, let me take a quick look over here at the comments. All right, we are doing good. Okay, questions. So you never know what a podcaster is going to ask you. You don't know. But you can have a general idea. And so there are a lot of similar questions or types of questions that you can prepare for in advance so that you have a general idea of how you would want to answer those types of questions. So some of them, I'm not going to get too deep into them, but just to give you an idea, something that you should have prepared. And again, being able to flow with however the question may be phrased towards you. Questions such as, who are you? What do you do? And what's your story? And I want to talk about what's your story and just say that doesn't mean your life story. Okay? That's going to be the story that you have that relates to what you do today, what your message is about. This was something that was very challenging for me when I first started being a guest on other people's shows. I thought, I'm a human that's lived how many years up until now, right? Even if you're 20 years old going out and podcasting, you have 20 years worth of life experience, worth of life stories. So this isn't about, what's your story and like all of the back stuff that then leads up to what you do today. I'm laughing because I've had to learn this myself. It's the immediate story that leads into what you do today. And if there is a longer component to yours, then find a way to truncate it and summarize it. And if the podcaster wants to ask you deeper questions about that, then they can. And that'll be an awesome opportunity for you to elaborate and share more of those other details. So, okay, that is tip or insight number 5. And now we're moving on to number 6. Number 6, and this again is a tip before you actually get the interview. It can come actually after you get the interview as well, though, so it can go either way. But before you do your interview, right? So before you are a guest on someone's show, make sure that you've actually watched or listened to their show at least once, preferably twice, so you can get a feel for any variations that may flow into how they do their shows. This is not only going to, of course, help them because you'll have an awareness of how their show flows, but it's absolutely going to help you so you know how their show flows. Because who's going to be most familiar with that show? The podcaster. As familiar as you can be with their show ahead of time, that is going to support you with being able to roll with those punches and anything that's unexpected that comes your way. You may realize, oh, wow, they tend to ask this question at this time or that, do this at the end. Maybe they do one of those rapid fire segments. Are you prepared for that or not? Right. And they may also do segments where you only have 8 minutes to talk and then they take a break and do a commercial segment. Or maybe they expect you to talk about one subject for the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I mean, everyone's show is going to be a little different. Maybe the whole show was only 20 minutes and you really need to be able to shorten what you have to share. Those are going to be that's going to be really good information for you. So make sure that you take time to listen to the show first. You don't want to go into it completely blind, cold. Okay. So that's that. Okay. Tip number 7. So this is really an insight that is really good. It's really good. Let me know your thoughts on this too. Being a guest on anyone's podcast, well, okay, not anybody's, the majority of people's podcasts is going to be a form of free marketing for you. Free marketing. How awesome is that? And it's not just the one time you do the show, right? Let's think about this. Podcasters do a lot. They put a lot of work into their show. And so what gets created? Well, we've talked about some of it already. There's going to be some form of a graphic created, right? An image that's going to be shared out to advertise your show. There's going to be the actual show that you do create, which could be in audio only format. It might be a video format. There may be portions of that interview that get sectioned out later and shared in added social media posts, or it's just in different places for different purposes. Your show may not only show up on one platform, such as, I do mine on Facebook, but then I also add it to YouTube and then to Apple Podcasts. The podcast can also show up on Spreaker, on Stitcher, on TuneIn, a myriad of other platforms, right? So podcasters do all this work of creating this show that is, for the most part, going to be free for you. I say for the most part because there are some people that may charge for you to be on their show. But a lot of podcasters do not charge, and it's completely free for you. So I want you to know that, because that's going to be really helpful for you going into a show, and to be mindful of, making sure that you're saying thank you. And in what way can you appreciate the efforts that they're putting into that for you? That is going to really be helpful for you, because it's not over after you do the interview. You've developed this relationship, this connection with the podcaster. Maybe you end up doing a second interview with them at some point. Maybe they end up referring you to other podcasters. People who are in the same industry develop relationships and connections. So that is highly common, actually, for someone to go, hey, I'm looking for a guest who knows about blah, blah, blah. Do you know anybody? And then someone who's just did a show with someone that knows about that topic is going to say, yes, I do. I just did a fantastic show with so-and-so. So if you've developed that positive relationship with them, you are appreciating the effort that they put into creating that podcast opportunity for you and putting it out there. That is really going to serve you beyond your interview. So how can you express your appreciation? It's going to be things like, number one, hello, literally saying thank you, right? Number two, make sure that you are sharing out that podcast. Make sure, any social media posts, when they send you that graphic for your show, I don't know why I just put up 3, by the way, so I'll take the numbers down. When they send you that graphic, when they tag you in a social media post, make sure that you're sharing those things out. It's not only in support of their show, it's in support of you and your message. Remember, it's this relationship and collaboration, and you're actually both supporting each other. So those things are incredibly helpful. You can also, leave their show a review on wherever it is that they advertise their show. Maybe, so Apple Podcasts, Facebook, maybe it's LinkedIn. Maybe it's any one of those other platforms, right? What's the other one? There's one I was thinking of. Maybe it's Stitcher. Anyway, so these are ways, simple ways that you can make sure that you are continuing to build that connection and show your appreciation and gratitude for the free marketing that you're getting. My last top tip and insight that I want to share with you for your next podcast interview is to psych yourself up. Psych yourself up! Okay, psych yourself up for that show. And another way of looking at this, maybe you're like, I don't need to psych myself up. I'm already psyched. I'm already excited. Pre-pave. What an awesome show that is going to be for you. And how you can do that, and you've probably heard me talk about this before, is I'm going to use some other law of attraction terms. You can segment intend, you can pre-pave, you can do a 68-second process on this. There was another one. What is it? Do a rampage on it. And basically what you're going to do, just take a minute, and before the show starts, talk about what an awesome show you just did, as if it's already happened. and you're doing that before the show. So really, you're just aligning with the energy. You're aligning with the energy. This is going to be a phenomenal podcast interview that you do with this host that creates such awesome momentum in the information and message that you have to share with those who are eager to receive your message, your expertise, and your wisdom. And so you're really just aligning that energy by already setting that intention, getting clear on that energy, and putting it out there so that by the actual end of the interview, it's going to be that amazing interview that you are proud to share, that you are proud to announce and send to your email list and add to your YouTube channel and all these different things. So those are my top 8 tips and insights, mostly for beginners, but maybe even you, if you have already done some podcast interviews and you're thinking, what am I missing? Well, there's got to be some added, insights that would help me in enhancing my podcast experience. And so I hope you found that helpful. And now I want to share with you, it's a little warm in here. Now I want to share with you special offers that I have for you this month as a result of the Tour de Kim O'Neill coaching, top tips and insights that I am providing. And we're going to start off with, once I realized that, oh my goodness, I've been doing employment interview coaching and now I've got all this podcasting experience from both sides, I totally see where I can serve and help people prepare for their podcast interview. So you can absolutely sign up with me for podcast interview coaching. And this is something that I've already been doing for a while now. You can find out more over on KimO'NeillCoaching.com. But in a nutshell, what we're going to do is, if you're looking to enhance your confidence and grow those skills, we're going to first and foremost, of course, look at what are your concerns. What questions do you have? Let's make sure we really look at those. I'm going to help you also prepare your best answers for those different types of questions that you specifically might get, the basic ones, but then also the ones that would pertain to your expertise. I'm also going to give you my podcast interview prep pack, which has a lot more tips than what I shared here today. I talk about the audio setup, the video setup, the tech stuff, just lots of other things that can really go into helping you prepare and have as positive of a podcast interview as possible. As well as I've got a whole long list of questions that are basically interview question prompts to help you prepare and get into that mindset of being ready to answer anything in any podcast that you may be interviewed on. So, and last but not least, for those that are video podcasts, which mine is, right? I put mine out there as it's a live show, but also I do the audio only component over on Apple Podcasts. So not every show has a live video component, but a lot do as well. So for those that have that, if that's something that concerns you, something that I really love is I have my podcast interview practice lab. And this is something that I've had for a while now. And if you are someone who's thinking, gosh, I have so much expertise, I want to put myself out there, I want to prepare for podcast interviews, but I'm too nervous to be on camera for those that have that video component, my podcast interview practice lab is an excellent space for you to prepare for that. Because here's the thing, this is a space simply for just you and me. No one else goes in there at the same time. It's a very safe space, private space for two things, for you and I to go in there and practice together, help you develop those, I'm going to be able to help you, give you feedback to what you could work on, what's working well, what to improve upon, but also you're welcome to go in there while we're coaching and working together. You are welcome to go in there yourself and practice doing video interviewing in there. And when we are done coaching, you have nothing to worry about, because if you want any of those videos, I will download them and send them to you. But when we're done, I delete it all. So the next person that comes on in does not see anything that you created. Okay. So if that appeals to you, I totally get it. And that's why I created it. And so what's so awesome about this is that this week only, starting today through next Wednesday, October 16th, 2019, I am offering you 50% off, craziness, 50% off my podcast interview, full interview coaching package. And you simply need to use podcast 50. That's the coupon code. And so you can go up and sign up for that right now. I will go ahead and post the link to that in the comments when we're done with this video. But you can simply go to KimO'NeillCoaching.com, click on the Interview Confidence Coaching tab, and then under the podcast interview section, go to book your session and type in podcast 50 and you'll get 50% off. Right now, a full session is 2 hours. And so this 2 hours for $150, very affordable right there. And you would get that for $75. So 1 week only. If you're interested and you want to nab that, now is the time to do that. So that is my first offer for you. And then I have a second offer that I'm really excited to share because this is completely new in the way that I put this together. Earlier, when I was talking about bios, there are many people who have fantastic bios. You know, they sign up to be a guest on my show. They've already got a fantastic bio. It's awesome. It's ready to copy and paste, and I can share that out when I'm, advertising our show coming up. But there are some, actually, there's been quite a lot of people where I received their bio, and I really see that it could use some tweaking. It really could use some restructuring, maybe taking out some things, maybe adding some things, and really shifting things around to help them shine, to really help their expertise and the awesomeness of who they are really come through in a few sentences, in a paragraph. I've done that so many times now. It's interesting how often that has come up. And even just last week from the employment interview coaching video that I did, that was an added request I later received that I didn't even anticipate. And so it just shows me how helpful this can be to people. So something that I am offering to you today, and we'll see how long I offer it. I don't really have an end limit on it, but I'm excited to share with you that if you would like help with your existing bio, I am offering to you a 30-minute bio review and tweak Zoom video call that we will go on for $30. $30 bio review and tweak, 30-minute call. And so this does mean that you already have a bio that you come to the call with. This is not me helping you create a bio from scratch. And so if you don't have one now, well, then you can go ahead and just put it together now. Put something together, right? Put your best together, and then let me know. And let's get on a call, and I will help you restructure that and really put that together so it helps you shine. It's something that's going to have a life of its own, beyond the interview. So you do want that bio to be looking good. And again, that's not to say that a podcaster or someone else may not still modify it to some degree, but the more you can be ready for that, the more you can present them that's something that's already complete to start off with, that is going to serve you more in the long run. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and send me a private message here on Facebook, or you can email me at KimO'Neill@outlook.com. That's KIMONEILL @outlook.com. And let me know that you're interested in the 30-minute bio review and tweak call. And go ahead and send me a copy of your existing bio with that. And we'll go ahead and coordinate that and set that up. So, my gosh, this was a long video, wasn't it? Lots of tips here today, and I am excited for those who have been here. Let me know what you're taking away from this. Let me know what thoughts, what questions you have. Again, there's so much more that I could share, but I really wanted to share stuff that I have learned, again, from being on both sides of the podcasting experience. I want to share with you stuff that I think is very foundational, that if you are just starting out, that having these tips and insight can really support you in knowing what you're getting into and helping you to prevent any unnecessary awkwardness that you might have in pursuing podcasters and being a guest on their show. So I hope you have found this useful. Again, you can go to KimO'NeillCoaching.com for more info. O'Neill is Oneill. The next live episode of my podcast and live show, the Every Day is a New Day show, is happening tonight, October 9th, 2019, 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm incredibly excited, and this person had a phenomenal bio, so none of the bio stuff I've shared tonight even applies to her, if anyone starts to question that. And I am so excited. I'm excited to connect with you and to continue to serve through my podcasting journey, and I hope that it serves and supports you as well. I'm grateful for you being here, and I'm going to let that be today's video. So let me know in the comments what you're taking away, and I will see you next week.